I literally just woke up. There's actually construction going on outside, so you'll probably hear some fun drilling noises and men yelling and God knows what else. And I actually planned on taking today off, but Microsoft said, hey RGT, no, we're not going to allow that. And instead, we're going to drop one of the biggest pieces of gaming news, well, ever. Xbox has just bought Bethesda and all its subsidiary companies. Now, this might be the largest company acquisition since, well, I guess Microsoft bought Rare way back in the day. So we definitely need to go over the details about this acquisition, what it means for the Xbox brand going forward, and also how this will impact the PlayStation 5 and the Nintendo Switch in the future. Because honestly, there's a lot of stuff to digest with this historic announcement, and I want to go over it all with you guys. What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. I'm wearing a wrinkly white t-shirt because, like I said, I just woke up. If this is your first time on the channel, though, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Without any further ado, though, let's talk about this crazy acquisition because, yes, Xbox just bought Bethesda, and there are a lot of ramifications because of this. So yeah, that whole console war thing that supposedly doesn't exist anymore, that supposedly is just a figment of people's imagination, hodgepodge to that, says Microsoft and the Xbox brand, because Xbox announced this morning that they have made yet another major studio acquisition. Now, of course, Microsoft has been buying up a lot of studios as of late. This, of course, is something they have done since they first purchased Rare way back in the day after Nintendo and Rare couldn't really come to some sort of agreement. Microsoft swooped in and picked up the Rare brand, and we'll touch on that later. But obviously the main focus of the story has to be Bethesda, because now Bethesda Softworks, Bethesda Game Studios, id Software, ZeniMax Online Studios, Arcane, Machine Gun Games, Tango Gameworks, Alpha Dog, and Roundhouse Studios are now all a part of the Xbox umbrella, according to our good friend, good old Slick Phil Spencer. Look at Slick Philly just coming out of nowhere with this major announcement, and I mean, you gotta love it. It always keeps things very exciting. Now, Bethesda is, of course, a company that has been working with Microsoft for a very long time. Remember back on the original Xbox, they got the Elder Scrolls game. I don't remember the subtitle of it, but it was essentially Elder Scrolls 3 that came to the original Xbox. It didn't come out on other platforms. And as of late, a lot of their games have been coming on things like Game Pass. But now going forward, that means that the Xbox family of consoles, the Xbox One, the Xbox Series S, and the Xbox Series X are the platform for games like Elder Scrolls, games like Doom, games like Fallout, games like Wolfenstein, and many more huge franchises that people all know, people all love, and people all play. I am literally shocked at this announcement for obviously several reasons, but I think the main reason has to be nobody saw this coming. There hasn't been any sort of rumors about this. Nobody has said a peep that Bethesda was potentially going to be purchased by Microsoft. Of course, WB Games was up on the chopping block for a while, so people thought, oh, maybe Microsoft will swoop in with that, but no, nobody heard anything about Bethesda, and then all of a sudden Microsoft comes in, the Xbox brand comes in and purchases Bethesda to utilize for the Xbox. Now, one of the main things that, of course, comes along with this is that Xbox gets a major addition to their Game Pass library on both the Xbox platforms and, of course, Game Pass PC. All first-party and Xbox-owned studio games, of course, come to Game Pass on day one, meaning that if you have Game Pass, you don't have to worry about potentially dropping the $60 or $70 that these next-generation games are going to cost in order to purchase this game, because it's automatically added to your library of games. I have always been a big fan of Game Pass, and I always thought that Game Pass was just an amazing value, and now adding in these Bethesda games that are going to be available on day one just makes that value much more sweeter. Now, there are some areas of concern, though, that I do want to touch on because, well, you have to look at the whole spectrum of things and not really just get too bought into the hype, even though I tend to do that sometimes when it comes to video game news. The first thing has to be that Bethesda has been a little bit questionable as of late with their game releases. Like, Wolfenstein Youngblood wasn't all that great. Elder Scrolls Blades was a microtransaction riddled affair. Nobody cared about a new Commander Keen. And, I mean, what can you really say about Fallout 76 besides the fact that, well, it wasn't really what people wanted. They sort of made that game a bit better as time went on, but still, it wasn't the Fallout game that people wanted, and it left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. But there have been awesome games as well, with games like Doom Eternal, so I guess it does end up balancing out in the end. The other concern has to be something that we touched on earlier, with Microsoft purchasing Rare and never really managing to captivate the spirit of the company like they were when they were with Nintendo. Aside from some games like Rare Replay and a few strange Banjo and Conquer games on the original Xbox, Rare has become a completely different company with service-based games such as Sea of Thieves, which ended up being a fine game in its own right, but it wasn't really what people who grew up with the N64 expected from Rare, and of course these IPs that Rare were attached with. I honestly don't feel that this will be the case with Bethesda and their subsidiary companies, but of course it is something worth mentioning because, well, you gotta be a little bit leery about things like this. But on the other side of the coin, you have to look at how this will impact other companies such as the PlayStation 5 and the Nintendo Switch, because yes, there's going to be a substantial impact. So I want to look at both of these consoles and give you guys my thoughts on how I feel this acquisition will impact these two consoles. First off, we're going to talk about the PlayStation 5, because really the PlayStation 5 has to be the most interesting of them, because there is a console exclusive game coming to the PlayStation 5 from Bethesda in Q2 of 2021, and that game is of course Deathloop. Now Deathloop is kind of weird, like I've said in my previous PlayStation 5 coverage. I'm not really super sold on this game or anything like that, but Deathloop is still a PS5 console exclusive, and it remains a PS5 console exclusive as of right now. There were other Bethesda games that were rumored to be coming to, of course, the PlayStation 5, such as Skyrim getting yet another re-release, but beyond that, things are very open. Is the next Elder Scrolls game, is the next Fallout game, is the next Doom game now skipping the PlayStation 5? I would have to assume yes, because of this acquisition. And while yes, you could judge the quality of games as of late from Bethesda, which I feel is fair, you cannot deny the lineage and the franchises that are usually very well represented on the PlayStation family of systems that come to us from Bethesda. The timing of this news is just absolutely crazy as well. Depending on when you're watching this video, we are just one day away from the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S pre-orders, and there's a lot of sort of negative feelings towards Sony right now for deceiving people with the PlayStation 5 pre-order availability. We'll give you guys plenty of notice when we're gonna do it, but we're gonna give you no notice whatsoever, and that the games that, according to Jim Ryan, were only possible on the power of the PlayStation 5, such as, well, Spider-Man Miles Morales and Horizon 2, both of which are coming to the PlayStation 4 as well. So I think as far as this console war that supposedly doesn't exist, but let's be real, it does sort of somewhat exist, this is definitely a big win for the Xbox and the Xbox Series X and S versus the PlayStation 5, because Bethesda is a huge acquisition. And of course, there is one more company that this will be impacting, and that is Nintendo with the Nintendo Switch. Doom Eternal is still coming, so don't worry about that. But beyond that, there is some concern that Bethesda, who, let's be real, has been one of the better third-party publishers on the Nintendo Switch with things like Skyrim, Doom, Wolfenstein, and more, is now going to stop putting games on the Nintendo Switch platform. Now, I do feel that this will initially limit the amount of games that come to us from Bethesda on the Nintendo Switch, but I still feel like you will see some titles come over from Bethesda to the Nintendo Switch because of one main reason. You have to look at the working relationship between Microsoft and Nintendo thus far, with games like, of course, Ori coming over to the Nintendo Switch, which was a Microsoft Xbox exclusive that is a company, Moon Studios, that of course Microsoft has money invested into. Microsoft honestly views Nintendo in a different light than they view Sony. So I think if either platform would be getting some Bethesda related games in the future, the Nintendo Switch is the one that would get it. And I really feel like it boils down to the fact of Microsoft's lack of presence in Japan, that being a major reason for this. And the Nintendo Switch is a way for them to get Microsoft related games and products into the Japanese audience without having the negative stigma of the Xbox brand in Japan attached to it, because the Xbox brand in Japan is just sort of a dead thing. Like, nobody cares about it in Japan, so why not look for a different way to enter that market than by using a popular system in that market and putting your games on that system that you don't really view as competition in the first place. All in all, though, this is just absolute madness. This is something that I didn't expect to wake up to, but here we are. Bethesda is now a Xbox branded company. All Bethesda games will be available on Game Pass, and it really is just a crazy thing. Like I said, these companies say there is no console war, but why are you buying up all these studios if there's no console war? So definitely some very crazy stories going on about this right before the release of the Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S pre-orders. So a very exciting time time for gaming news. Let me know in the comments section down below what you think of this acquisition. Do you think this is a good move for Xbox? Do you think this is a good move for Bethesda? And how will this impact, of course, the Xbox family of consoles, the PlayStation 5, and the Nintendo Switch in the long run? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Check out other videos on the channel as well. Hit it with a like too. And as always, oh God, they're doing construction. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.